Welcome to NC Political Tea, the show where North Carolina's political scene gets served piping hot, grassroots style. We're here to shake up the status quo with unapologetically conservative takes and a whole lot of Southern charm. From the halls of Congress to under the dome, we're exposing the deals, the drama, and the dirt that the mainstream media won't touch. Who's fighting for your freedom? Who's selling out to the woke mob? And who's about to get roasted? No fluff, no filters, and absolutely no time for spineless politics. Just bold Republican commentary, sharp analysis, and enough sass to make the left squirm. So grab your sweet tea or something stronger, and let's dive into the hottest headlines and juiciest scandals rocking the Tar Heel State. This is NC Political Tea, where the truth always gets served.
And the truth is going to be served tonight. I'm so excited.
Another Tuesday, another truth day.
Ooh, love it. I love what you did with that. How are you?
Well, I mean, if we continue the theme, the truth is an absolute defense.
You know, that's right.
I do.
We're all about the truth. We're all about Veritas here. Off subject, but kind of related, not really. Do you know what your name actually means in another language? Like, what does your name actually symbolize?
In I think it's Celtic or Gaelic, it means pearl.
Gaelic, mine means warrior.
Wow. Well, I'm not surprised at that. I'm so not surprised at that.
That's totally wild. Sloan means warrior, and you're the pearl.
Yeah. And my daughter's name is a man's name in Gaelic, and it means something similar to warrior. It means protector of them.
Okay. All right. Well, there's truth in advertising because, you know, with a lot of grit, right, comes a pearl, and that's what you are.
Well, on the inside, she's all nice and pretty. On the outside, she can be kind of ugly and mean.
Well, listen, that's the way it is. That's the way you have to be sometimes. Okay. So look, everyone's talking about this. This is the biggest deal in North Carolina politics right now. We maybe redistricting. And you tell me when you want me to play this video, because I found the video that you sent me another good explanation. What's going on here?
Well, actually, so it's not maybe. We're going to do it. Like, we have done it for the last 44 years. We've been in court every 10 years and then some on redistricting. So we're going to do it. And I'll tell you why we're going to do it. We're going to do it because when Trump was president during 2020, right when he left office, they got some Biden math on the census. See, he just handed that over and said, this is yours to handle. Well, they did some Bidenese math, and that math.
This up. Let me put this
22 up. Census.gov. This is census.gov right here. You can see we got dark mode going on, but it is the census.gov website, and they admitted this in 2022. Yeah. 2020 census undercounts 6 states, and it overcounts in 8. So 8 states, they say, have more people, more congressional apportionment, more congressional seats in the House of Representatives. 6 states had undercounts, so they had less. Isn't that convenient? They said, we released our results on this thing, and we got some pretty big problems here. And here are the numbers. According to census, these states had undercounts. Okay, so they're being stripped of people and congressional seats. Arkansas, 5 points. Florida, 3.5 points. Illinois, 2 points. Mississippi, 4. Tennessee, almost 5. And Texas, almost 2. As you can tell, it's red state, blue state, red state, red state, red state. So they were undercounted, which means if these next census results are accepted, they're going to be cheated out of apportioned congressional seats. And guess where the overcounts were, where they say that there are more people than there actually are, so that they get more.
Okay. I think I understand this. So we're doing a game of counter gerrymandering.
Correct. We absolutely are. And listen, it is timely for them to begin to do this at the end of 2025 for the beginning of 2026 as we head toward the 2030 census. Is it maybe not appropriate and not in our Constitution to do it this way? It is absolutely not. And we will be back in court. But I have to say, we have been in court every year for 44 years about census numbers and or redistricting lines. So this is new news.
Okay, well, with an alternative view, this is from Andy Jackson from the Locke Foundation. And he writes, I believe it was yesterday. He writes about that this could actually boomerang. So as you said, the GOP is arguing that California, New York, they're doing it in favor of Democrats. Democrats say that when you redistrict this close in the cycle, guys, in other words, when you're right up on an election and you're doing it, they're saying, and maybe correctly, okay, I'm not going to lie, that this is not legal. And this is just a way for us to lock in power and not fix the process. Again, we're doing it to counter what the other states have done using North Carolina as a part of this national strategy. Now, Andy Jackson in this says that, look, tweaking one or two districts here, he's actually saying, I want to get your thought on this, that it could backfire, creating what's called a dummy mander, where small adjustments end up strengthening the other party instead.
Well, I'm not going to deny he may be right. I'm going to say this out loud. I don't think Phil Berger is buying into doing this for the federal government at all, first of all. And secondly, the District 1 is definitely that's going to be where they're going to spend a lot of time.
So if you're not from North Carolina, I wish I had a map. Let me tell you where District 1
on the
is.
coast.
Okay, so it's up. Okay, if you're looking at our state, it's up where I am in Wake County, in the center of the state, up and to the right. Coastal, but it's also on the Virginia border.
Correct. Coastal and right, that's right. So here's the challenge. They absolutely want to get rid of Don Davis. He has too many. He's got a lot of pull. The farmers like him there. They want to get rid of him. But let's be honest. The redistricting won't just affect Don Davis's district, because they're going to want to redistrict and help Phil Berger out, because he's in a big contentious race.
Now, wait, and just for those listening, Phil Berger is the most powerful man in politics in North Carolina. He's been in the Senate for a long time, Senate Pro Tem. We don't favor him actually here because he makes deals with Democrats. He supports Democrats in elections. He's a trans Democrat. He supports casinos. He supports marijuana. This foreign doctor bill that we're talking about, fishing. I mean, the shrimping thing. I'm using a nail file as my prompt. Anyway.
Does it work?
It works damn well. Now, we support a guy named Sam Page. We've had him on the show a couple of times. He's a sheriff. And we think it's time for a leadership change. So we hear that Trump might be unprecedented, giving an endorsement of his primary campaign for state Senate in exchange. I'm going to say that's corrupt as hell. If that's actually happening, I oppose that very much.
I would really, I really hesitate to think that that's going to happen, because Sam Page is one of the leading sheriffs in the country who's been supported and supportive of President Trump. So that's really going to put him in a bad position. Trump, that is. I do want to talk about one more piece of redistricting that hasn't been brought up, and it's really important. Tomorrow, the Supreme Court is going to hear an argument about Louisiana versus Callius. And the importance of this argument is it's about redistricting based on racial lines, which is a big deal in North Carolina. That's what they like to use. But what the crux of the argument is that in Louisiana, they drew a district and they said they did it for predominantly the black vote. But the white voter said, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. What about us? So what it's really going to determine, if we just boil it down, is why do we have any districts on racial lines? That is racist. Tomorrow, Harmeet Dillon is going to argue that case at the Supreme Court. So I think what North Carolina is doing is two things. I think they're getting ahead of that decision, because I really think it's going to go in favor of removing the racial redistricting lines. I think they're getting ahead of that. And I truly believe that they're going to help Don Davis lose if they can, but it's not going to be about Don Davis. They're going to try to help Phil Berger win, just like they did. I just want to remind people, how did Tim Moore get in Congress? He built himself a district. District 14, they built it just for him. So just understand what's really going on here.
Okay. I mean, look, you and I were talking today, and I feel like I'm talking to family right now with all of our supporters and people that watch. I said, look, I'm a Republican. Actually, I'm not in the party. I am not an officer like you are. I'm in the party, but so I can probably say it. Yes, I mean, I like it when we had the supermajority, and I do obviously, I mean, the Democrats will end this country. They will end this state. But we have Republicans who pass dumb shit like the foreign doctors law that will also end this state. So if we have this, then by whatever means, okay. And by the way, the Democrats will be doing it. They've done it 10 times. They're a hell of a lot worse. If they're going to sometimes act like Democrats in a major way that's going to hurt families in North Carolina, I don't like it. And that's why you and I are dedicated to primary politics, where we can get some of these rhinos out.
Listen, I am a Republican, have been since the day I was ever put my first voter registration. I've never changed my party. I've only voted for one Democrat. He was a judge here in my district, and I did it because he helped my family. But that's a whole nother story. The bottom line here is, and I hope the people, the haters, Carrie, are listening. I look out for people who do the right thing. I don't care what party you're in. And if you're in my party and you're not doing the right thing, you better believe I'll be the first one to call you out, because I want us to be above reproach. And when we're not, you cannot sit there and throw stones at a glass house if your house is not whole and clean and done all that good stuff. You know what I mean?
Wow, you can't be in a glass house and your house has to be clean. I'm screwed.
No,
I don't live in a glass house, but my house is a mess. So
I don't know. All those I rolled them all into one. I should have just said clean your own damn porch, but I didn't. But I just don't like the fact that it's really hard to fight a fair fight when you have dirty people on your side too. It just really is.
I was just saying that. When I see a picture today of Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly, who, I love, and Tucker Carlson in the same picture. If we can't call out anti-Semitism in our own party, if we can't call out pedophilia in our own party, if we can't, whatever it is, and you and I have talked about that a lot. So, but now to Democrats who are absolutely ruining the country and are sadly despicable, not as people, as a party, the party platform. Do Democrats speak out about it? Sometimes, every now and then, but more of them need to speak out. So we have been talking quite a bit about the problem of radical actors, whether they're on the right or the left, but they're almost always on the left. They're violent. So there is a guy named oh my gosh, where is he in District 9? A guy running.
Richard Oji or Ojeda. I don't know how you say his last name.
He's running for District 9. Yeah, he used to be a lawmaker in West Virginia. Here's the kind of violent rhetoric that he's spewing, and he's running right here in our own state. You have to hear it to believe it. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Stephen Miller needs to be thumped. That guy's a friggin' worm. I would be willing to go to jail for, how much would I get for just cracking him a couple times? I'd be willing to go to jail to kick shit out of him. I'd be more than happy to find myself in an elevator with him, and I'd whoop his ass from the first floor to the fifth floor, and be happy to go to jail.
Okay.
You talking about David Rouser?
No, he's talking about Stephen Miller.
Oh my God, really? Stephen Miller would take your ass to court, Richard, and you would never get out.
Well, I want to say that'd be a tough fight to call. I think Richard would beat his ass, but Stephen's a lawyer. Stephen's a lawyer, and I can tell you, he'll sue.
The sword is mightier than, the pen is mightier than the sword when it comes to the law.
He's saying he doesn't care. He'll catch a charge to do an ass whooping. But here's the thing, guys. The reason why we're bringing it up, and it's been in the news, and I
terrible representation for that district.
Horrible person. I don't know if what kind of backing he has from the Democrats. I would imagine a lot, because check this out. He has raised $780,000.
We got to check John Smith. That's kind of interesting, that name.
Oh, okay. So I made a little screenshot. 700. He's almost $1 million raised. And by the way, it's earmarked for some are for primary, some are for the general. An awful lot for primary, though.
Yeah, I thought he was running again for Congress. I'm pretty sure he is.
Oh yeah, he's running for Congress. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I said. And against Richard Hudson in District 9.
Oh,
so look at this. Okay, so look at some of the states, but look at the dollar amounts. Ready? Check it out.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's all acquisition.
$180,000. I mean, this is a good running start. This is more than some of the, certainly a state candidate would have. It's not as much as Richard Hudson. Richard Hudson, I mean, is going to.
Crystal Ball gave him money. Honestly, I honestly think this needs to be audited. It's just a little fishy to me. A lot of Smiths, a lot of double payments. Just me, you know, that looks very Act Bluish to me. But listen, good on you, Richard. Get out there and run, because you're going to get your ass kicked. And then after you get your ass kicked, you might get your ass kicked in court, because what you don't know about Stephen Miller is he's a prize here in North Carolina. He stood up for those lacrosse players at Duke University when everybody said they were rapists, and they weren't. And Stephen Miller said, no, they're not. And he was right.
Yeah. Stephen Miller got his start here at Duke University. He's a hometown hero. And a lot of people don't know that, but actually, that's where he did his training. And so it's funny, my son is applying for colleges, and we're begrudgingly applying to Duke, and he goes, Mom, look, if it's good enough for Stephen Miller, I think we can do this.
Listen, the one thing I love about Stephen Miller is he made Roy Cooper say, you were right. Roy Cooper was the attorney general when all that was going on. And Stephen Miller stood up and said, you're wrong. This is wrong. And he made Roy Cooper eat it and fix it.
Well, that's good. I mean, Stephen Miller is very effective. Very effective at what he does. So look, I stand corrected. I apologize. $754,000. That's a hell of a lot of money, guys.
He's not going to be Richard Hudson, though.
He's definitely not. Okay, so we got some good news. This is as of last week. John Locke Foundation said, blah, blah, blah. Here are the changes. Unaffiliated voters, you've got to realize here in North Carolina, and I don't know where you're watching from. We do have a lot of people out of state, but in North Carolina, if I register to vote, it's going to put my address, make it public, but it's also going to put, am I voting Republican or Democrat? Because you have to register, or independent. So, I think a lot of people register as independent because you don't want people at the workplace to know.
Correct. And I also think people don't realize, the independents or unaffiliated voters have it really well, because they don't have to identify. So they get to pick whichever ballot they want.
They don't get any mail. They don't get all this damn mail, this campaign mail.
That's absolutely, unless they're stupid enough to get on a website and actually say, go team for somebody, which is dumb. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm. So, we're looking pretty good, and we're ahead of track to beat Democrats in registration. Now, we're not going to be clear, unaffiliated still have it. And I will tell you, as someone that has run campaigns before, it is very expensive to reach unaffiliated voters as a candidate.
So I think the goal in all of this is to help people understand that, we're not going to be ahead of unaffiliated, but we're going to be ahead of the Democrats. But here's what's really important. Candidates declare in December for the next year. The primary is March 3rd. It's very early in the year, this upcoming year, which means early voting is going to be earlier than that, right? So you're going to get right out of the holidays and right into the, full-on campaigning for a hard 2 months at least. So, just the primary is short run. It's a short run primary next year. So I think the most important thing about that is being ahead of the game before we get into the primary season. That's super important.
Well, and so municipal elections, early voting is right now.
Correct.
So we talked a lot about Mecklenburg County, and we have got to get leadership change. We've got 3 city council, 1 at large, 1 in District 4, I think they call it, and District 1. We've got a really good shot of winning, got a great shot of winning mayor with Terry Donovan running for mayor. And so you and I and Sean and a bunch of our friends, Mayor Robert, and a lot of people are going to be this Saturday in Charlotte. We're going door knocking this Saturday in Charlotte. If you do not know, if you've not heard of this, is your first time, DM me, DM Margot. Lots of murders going on there. We have got to have a change.
Yeah, lots of murders. The FBI put out their statistics today that they've, apprehended, I think, 214 people, had 46 guns removed from people. So it's important that we show everybody that we care about all of North Carolina, not just where we live. It's worth it to me. I don't know if y'all know that, but I have family in that area. I worry about their safety, and I just want to go and support my fellow North Carolinians. I've done it several times. If you haven't ever been to the Mecklenburg GOP or the Women's Club's meetings, or when they have an event, you should go. They're great.
Very much so. And you're driving how many hours?
I'm sorry?
You're driving how many hours?
That day will probably be I'm just coming from High Point, but
I mean, how many hours?
Yeah, but total would be about 5 if I was going direct.
Okay. All right. So if you can do it,
anybody can.
You're on a 2-hour drive, come there. We're going to have donuts, coffee, etc. And you will not be alone when you're doing it, guys. You're not going to be alone. You're going to be with other people. So something that we have been talking about is healthcare. And this is going to be a big topic tonight, actually. Certificate of need laws. And I'm kind of switching gears here. So next week, the General Assembly gets in. Okay. Next week they get in and they're going to take up a lot of they're going to take up what we just talked about, right? They're going to take up the redistricting. And a lot of them are really excited about it.
Sorry. Yeah, we are too. I'm excited about it. I want to hear the fight, actually.
Yeah. I do too, but these con laws. So let me explain this. There are arguments for putting foreign doctors into North Carolina. None of the arguments make a damn bit of sense. One of them is, we've got a shortage. Actually, that's the only plausible argument. Certificate of need laws it's a gating system for clinics. So if you've got 92 counties here out of 100 in North Carolina are labeled healthcare shortage areas, they're really not, but they're named that. And so what's happening is there's a stranglehold on the supply because you have to go through hoops. And actually, I don't think you're allowed to actually just put up a clinic, correct?
It depends on what it's doing. I mean, the thing you're talking about is clinics that have the need to use surgical facilities. And those have to be certified. They have to meet some criteria. It's going through hoops. It's a bunch of hoops.
Right. And it's controlled by largely the hospital association. Now, I didn't realize this, but the hospital association just got a new lobbyist in the last year. Mm-hmm. And that lobbyist is Josh Dobson. Josh Dobson was the Republican who actually ran the labor department here in North Carolina for us. So you've got a guy who is very tight with the Republicans, who is going in at the behest of the hospital lobby. What this does is actually encourages just strangulation completely of mom and pop clinics, etc., and really supply. So go ahead.
Kind of back off a little bit and explain, like an orthopedic surgeon is a clinic we're talking about, something like that. An orthopedic surgeon cannot do procedures in his office as well as he could at a hospital facility for certain things. So they need a certificate of need to practice there, right?
Well, you need a certificate of need for certain equipment as well. So
Correct.
If you were to have an orthopedic clinic with certain equipment, you would need that, for example. So surgery centers, etc., you have to have that. But these hospitals want all the business. And so you've seen a massive consolidation. In fact, North Carolina we've got the highest healthcare costs in the country. We've got the most consolidated healthcare in the country. My God, we have Blue Cross Blue Shield, who owns 87% of the insurance business here. So, who gets paid from that? Well, we know, and I've spotlighted politicians, and most of them, the lion's share of them, are Republicans who make decisions that sell us out.
Correct. And in rural areas, it's even worse because you have to drive further. You have to make sure you're at a hospital that will, allow you in, because if you're going to go to a place like that, like I'll give you the example here, you're either going to Atlanta or you're going to Asheville, because there's no place here you can have those types of procedures done. Right.
And so the argument is, wow, we have a healthcare shortage. And so what we're going to do is have this doctor's law instead of for instance, expanding the certificate of need and what that would look like. I mean, I'm certainly not an expert on it, but I know more than some legislators who admit they don't even read the bills. So what that would look like is having less government regulation and more business enterprise freedom. I think they call that conservative governance.
It is. Yeah, and honestly, what it'll allow is rural areas will actually have the ability to have facilities with doctors. For instance, where I live on the border, a lot of doctors have clinics in Blue Ridge, which is across the border from me, but they can't come over to North Carolina because they can't get the con.
So there is that compact. So there was an interstate compact that was a part of, and we're talking about H Bill 67, which we've talked about quite often, and it's the foreign doctors bill. And I'm going to tell you different aspects of it. We're going to be joined by Dr. Andrew Bostom in just a second, and he's an expert. Actually, he's a Renaissance man. He's an expert in a lot of things that we need to talk about tonight. But with these certificate of need laws, I mean, that Brian Balfour of Locke Foundation, he's making the point, and I believe it to be true, that if you want to expand, access, this is what you do. This is a lawsuit that's coming up, and iSurgeon is going to challenge these con laws, and there's a panel that's going to decide and to see what's getting ready to happen. So, hopefully that will, anything. And there are a lot of other things we could have tried, Margot, but what they tried was this.
Yeah.
So the foreign doctor bill. And what that is actually is it's a bill that get this, 100 counties in North Carolina. It applies to 100 counties, any hospital.
That's all the counties in North Carolina, for those that don't know it.
Every hospital.
Right.
And then in 92 counties, it can be clinics where you can have a doctor from anywhere. China, Iran, Pakistan, Gaza. You see what's happening in Gaza right now. They're killing their own people.
Egypt. So, those are Gaza.
Egypt, you name it. They can come right in. And I mean, literally, as soon as they land, they are going to get, well, let me show this. Here's an example. They're going to get a license, right? Not a provisional license. They're going to get a license to practice with zero supervision.
Right. And we've been talking about this a lot, but it's such a big deal. We need to continue to talk about it, especially as we talk about elections forthcoming, because this is an impactful piece of the elections forthcoming.
Well, it is a very important thing coming. And if you want to talk about who did this in the Senate, these are the guys. Let me remove this and put this on. These are the guys and gals in the Senate who actually removed having supervision, no supervision requirements. And they removed it from the bill. This is Senator Benton, and he's from Johnson County. This is Amy Gailey from Alamance, and I think part of Guilford.
Correct.
Yeah. And then this is, oh my gosh, it's escaping me. Lee, actually Bergen. I'm sorry, Bergen from Lee County and Harnett. I don't know if any of them are getting a primary, but they sure as hell need it. They actually removed it, and we have the emails to prove that they were warned that removing it would endanger every Medicaid and Medicare patient in the state of North Carolina, and they did it anyway.
What's interesting about that is they're in what I would consider central North Carolina, not really, in the rural areas. I wouldn't consider any of them in truly rural areas like I live in, or some other areas. And for them not to take into account the impact.
People.
Right.
But their own people. So their own people are going to be affected, and they did it anyway. They're still lying about it. They're still lying about it and saying that, American doctors are going to receive the same training as the foreign doctors. And that just simply is not true.
They're lying. Don't you know? The trolls are lying. Remember?
Right. I have been called a liar quite a bit. And I think we're at day 100. and still not one correction has been asked for in any of my writing.
But I will say this, they sure do love to pull your Substack and read it. They want to call you all kinds of names, but we can see when you read our Substack.
Giving away our magic. No. So this would be, this would go a long way towards doing something. Now, I'm just going to bring up a few cases. This is in the UK because my contention is this. Once you allow doctors to come in here and you're not, here's a difference. American doctors now, be they from Boston or Bangladesh, they do the same USMLE testing. It's got 1, 2, 3 steps, and they take a residency. So it's kind of a level playing field, right? But at least you know that if they're from Bangladesh, that damn it, they want to work in the United States, right? Now, they're going to go recruit someone that may be in a tent in Pakistan, hasn't practiced for 5 years because they don't have to be practicing actually, and bring them in. So they're coming in for money, right? And not a lot of money. So it depresses wages for American doctors. So they're allowed to come in. We've talked about what it does to the market. Tonight, we're going to talk about what it does to safety, because now we've immediately, with a stroke of a pen in this law, we've made North Carolina technically the NHS, and they're having a hell of a lot of problems over there. These are just a couple. So this doctor, who is from Pakistan, and actually Pakistan happens to be the second highest recruitment area for international doctors in North Carolina. All right. He posted on a dating app pictures of him doing brain surgery.
Oh my God.
Well, this gets better. This guy, this Pakistani guy came in. Okay, again, these guys, they're just basically, mercenaries coming in for the highest bidder. He was in a surgery, patient was open, and went and banged somebody in the next room. I mean, had sex with him, and came back in and just started. What in the literal hell? This guy's raped a bunch of patients, etc. And there is a culture. There is absolutely a culture in Pakistan that is very degrading of women, would put it mildly. But I'm not an expert. There is a man that's coming on, Dr. Andrew Bostom, who is an expert in all of this. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Hi, Sloan.
I'm going to get you so I can see. Okay, yeah, there we go.
Is that better? Is that more centered?
It's much
yes.
better.
Okay, I described you earlier. You're a true Renaissance man. First of all, you are an academic at Brown. I have a funny story about Brown in a second. Actually, I'll tell you now. I was a neurosurgery rep, and I was in the room for 2 of the 3 times that a surgeon operated on the wrong part of the brain, the wrong side. Okay. But I had nothing to do with it.
And you couldn't really say anything about it, right? You just had to watch as it happened.
Well, I didn't know. What do I know? I was just
with orthopedic surgery, at least they mark the leg. It's like I guess they could mark part of the skull.
It depends, because if you're removing I don't really remember what this was. I don't think they open it, but if you're doing a pituitary tumor, you guys.
Oh, no.
You go through the nose, and there's some tumors that do through the ear. So I think it might have been a pituitary tumor. But anyway, I digress. So you were at Brown, and then what I loved about you is you came out in support of families who did not want to mask their children.
Yeah, that was there was a state lawsuit for masking kids in school specifically. Boy, the litigation lasted from most of the pandemic. But the parents finally won. All they wanted was a public hearing on the efficacy or the lack of efficacy of masking, where the data could be presented. After all the practical empirical evidence was in that, once again, this pandemic showed that masks don't work. I mean, the hearing that we had was actually kind of moot, but at least they got it. And it was just the fact that the state would fight such a reasonable and simple request that, well, let's just have an open hearing. You bring your experts, we'll bring our experts, and let's have a discussion of and really, Sloan, the evidence my background was in epidemiology, but it was the epidemiology of heart disease and kidney disease. And so when the pandemic came, I had to get up to speed. I could see things that I didn't like. I had to get up to speed on infectious disease epidemiology. And part of the literature I reviewed was, like the flu era or pre-COVID era. What sort of randomized controlled trials had been done with masking? I mean, flu and COVID are roughly the same particle size. The whole dynamics of transmission and everything are the same. And it was shocking to me, because this is not a literature I was familiar with before the pandemic era, that every single randomized controlled trial, not observational studies, which can be heavily biased one way or another, every single one was negative. And actually that information was given to Fauci. I got to see a pooled analysis that was about to be published as the pandemic was breaking, and he appropriately got an advanced copy of it. And there was some emails that came out, through Public Records Act, FOIA requests, whatever. And this paper was presented to him. And if you remember, at the beginning of the pandemic, he was very down on masking.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Until they had their volte-face, the whole thing, turned around 180 degrees.
Exactly.
Yeah, because everyone knew the literature, that certainly people like him that were infectious disease people, and all this analysis did was pool the studies that were available right up until the pandemic. There was a big review of clinical trials by the Cochrane Group, which is well known for studying. I remember that.
Remember how they were lambasted? They were lambasted after publishing that as well. Remember that?
Yeah, I know the investigator that had been. So what they do is sort of like a rolling analysis. They update their analyses at Cochrane, and he had iterations before the pandemic, and then during and well into the pandemic, and they were all negative. They were incrementally negative. He was furious at the way Cochrane itself was pressured. Because all his earlier iterations, the things just sailed through. There was no comment, and anyway. But so the parents lost the lawsuit in one sense. They didn't get the suspension of the mask mandate where it counted. But as the litigation continued, on and on, and discovery and other things, they got the hearing. Which is all they ever asked for.
Well, one thing okay, so I'm going to try this view again and see if it works. It doesn't. Okay. So while we're on this, I just, you're familiar with the foreign doctor law. We've talked about it offline, and Dr. Anish Koka came on and spoke about it and wrote about it. And so you're familiar with it, but what I haven't played up a lot about it is this, and it dovetails off what we're talking about right now. So it really takes the testing and the vetting. It takes it not only out of the hands of North Carolina, it takes it out of the hands of the United States, and it puts it into the hands of the WHO affiliated nonprofit organizations.
Yeah, I mean, it's awful. I mean, I just was in the waiting room while you had your just immediately prior discussion. And I didn't know about either of those cases. That's absolutely shocking. I mean, and I guess those physicians are able to just move to another hospital or something.
I have so many of those, Andrew. We've got our very own here, and so and by the way, our medical board here, it's probably like any other, hapless at best, criminal at worst. So this is a guy, a jackass, really. Kashif Chaudhry, he was fired, okay. He wasn't working anymore once Stump Anti-Semitism got reports on him. He says all this ridiculous things. Mind you, Andrew, we've caught him tweeting during clinic hours. He works here in North Carolina now for Catawba Health, okay? And I'm just going to put up one. By the way, he's a guy that came in under Obama, I believe, and he loves to go around and he says ISIS has nothing to do with Islam, and I knew you'd get a good chuckle. He's an activist. And so I know this is like a Clockwork Orange type of triggering for us. But anyway, so he's saying that Christians are criminal and evil during clinic hours. And
he's tweeting this out while he's supposedly in clinic.
Oh, but you have to understand, he's in very rural North Carolina, which is 99.9% Christian.
Exactly.
And
so when that's exposed, does the local community react? Because that's the only way to deal with these people.
I know. I'm so glad that you asked, because I went to the medical board, which is a big mistake, but it was a good test run for me. And the medical board told me to go pound sand and that they weren't going to do anything. And so he, to my knowledge, is still employed. The good thing about us, we're activists and journalists. We do it all, right? And so we only have a finite amount of time, but he's been our poster boy of what's getting ready to happen. And
no, but do you find that there's anyone in the local community, because that's who he's tending to?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, do they organize in any way to stop this? Because this is the problem across America, is that, you know, I've seen this in Rhode Island in relation to a mosque that I started to monitor, is that, you know, the local people do nothing, not just the politicians, but like the ordinary people. They just sort of shrug their shoulders, you know.
Well, I don't think the locals know, because unless they're watching our broadcast, they're just not on X or seeing this. But the people at the medical community on the board locally, they know, and they are worried because guess why? Because he's in a rural community, and
it's underserved.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there we go. Here we go with the oldest excuse that they could do all these other things. And audience, I'm not going to bore you, but this is a very interesting thing, because a lot of our audience, you may not know, but Muslims oppress the hell out of Hindus as well. And my doctor, my primary care doctor, is a Hindu. She's been my doctor for 15 years. She came here from India. You know why? Because she wanted to. She took her boards, USMLE, worked her ass off, blah, blah. Right. And you know who's the most angry, Andrew? Mostly Indian doctors who have come here and play by the rules.
Right.
They're furious with this.
Right. I trained when I was at Downstate, some of the best residents that I ever worked with as a medical student, when we were doing our sub internships, et cetera. Even our clinical rotations were Indian doctors that were incredibly well trained, Hindu doctors that were incredibly well trained in India. Then they had to go back and redo their residencies, and you know, they were far superior in many respects to the American residencies. Part of it is understandable; they'd already done a residency, but they were very dedicated. They were a pleasure to work with. You know, it's a shame, and they did things the right way.
Well, it is. And by the way, we're starting a new PAC here that's going to take politicians out of office who have their fingerprints all over this. And by the way, I'm pretty pumped. I'm pretty pumped about that. Look, we've seen stories where healthcare workers have threatened to kill Jews and came close to making good on it. This situation is so crazy. I wanted you to explain it to our audience.
Yeah, this really struck home. This is she's in my former division.
Oh wow.
She was in my former division. So I worked. So my research was in. I wasn't a clinical nephrologist. I was an internist and an epidemiologist and clinical trialist. But I ran one of the largest clinical trials ever conducted in kidney transplant recipients, and it was run out of the division that Rasha was working in. Before she came there. And so when this story started to emerge, early spring, the end of the winter, I was just flabbergasted when I saw, what was going on. So basically, she was only picked up, and she's different than the cases you're describing. I mean, Rasha had come to the United States with, at the time, appropriate visa status. And she had done a research fellowship and then a clinical fellowship in nephrology. She had done it the right way. But it turns out, she made a trip back to Lebanon and her family's is part of Hezbollah, and her I think it's a paternal
Unbeknownst,
uncle ran a well-known Hezbollah bank, and that's serious money laundering probably involved there. And she had family members that posted all kinds of martyrdom videos, etc. But what caught her up was that, so she went back to Lebanon ostensibly to visit her family, and really what it looks like she went to do is to attend Nasrallah's funeral, Hassan Nasrallah's funeral. And she wound up trying to delete some folders that were on her phone, and didn't do it successfully. And a very astute Customs and Border personnel employee saw what was on her phone, and sat her down, and the whole interrogation was released and is online.
Yes.
And he or she was very methodical. We don't know who it was, and just drilled down on, you went to Nasrallah's funeral. Are you not aware that he's got hundreds of Americans, the blood of hundreds of Americans on hand, and you're telling me he's just a spiritual person? Do you really believe that? And she did. Well, she said she did. It was just absolutely appalling, her responses. And I did a piece for it, a piece about it for
Allgemeiner.
the Allgemeiner. Yeah, and so I had studied Nasrallah's ideology for two of the books that I've written.
Well, let's put this up here because I wanted to show everyone. I mean, you're a Renaissance man. You're not only you're close to our heart. We're against the masking BS, of course. Once we saw the research, we love people who stand up against these things. And then you're also a venerable foreign policy and history author, which I think is amazing. I saw that also that you've done some stuff for Middle East Forum, which I love. And of course, they're a think tank that, talks about this stuff, but all this is to say, I'm laying the groundwork. We're about to hear, you guys, audience, from a guy who really knows this in depth. So you've studied Hezbollah. By the way, full disclosure, I was never more proud to be, I'm Jewish. I was never more proud to be a Jew than PagerGate. Loved it. Yeah,
I mean, it's really, the IDF has really, and intelligence has degraded Hezbollah considerably. But when Rasha was talking about Nasrallah's, it was really quite audacious of her. I mean, she was talking about Nasrallah's spirituality and actually challenged the Customs and Border Patrol personnel to watch his sermons, how spiritual they were. So I mean, because I had written an entire book about Iran, and mostly about the regime, but I mean, Hezbollah is just a proxy of Iran. So I had done investigation of Hezbollah and Nasrallah, and I just just from various writings of his, I compiled this, and I just want to read it. He was a learned scholar in terms of Islam. He knows the texts, and he's referred to Jews as apes and pigs, which is actually a Quranic verse. And Allah's most cowardly and greedy creatures. These are all Quranic citations. But then he puts it together in his own understanding, which again is unfortunately a common understanding, but be that as it may. He says, anyone who reads the Quran and the holy writings of the monotheistic religions sees what they, the Jews, did to the prophets, and what acts of madness and slaughter the Jews carried out throughout history. Anyone who reads these texts cannot think of coexistence with them, of peace with them, or about accepting their presence, not only in Palestine of 1948, but even in a small village in Palestine, because they are a cancer which is liable to spread again at any moment. There is no solution to the conflict in this region except with the disappearance of Israel. If we search the entire world for a person more cowardly, despicable, weak, and feeble in psyche, mind, ideology, and religion, we would not find anyone like the Jew. Notice I do not say the Israeli. If they, the Jews, all gather in Israel, it will save us the trouble of going after them worldwide. And I'm like, that's the person that Rosh Alawe, Dr. Alawe, was touting as spiritual.
And I'm sure this guy too. I'm sure, because the things he said about Jews is, I actually could not trigger myself today to put them up, but this will give you the flavor of it, and it's constant. He can't. What I mean, how many shows, Margot, have we done on this guy?
Oh, probably 5, at least 5. So the question I have is, what ended up happening to Russia? And how do we treat people like this in general when they blatantly come back and forth to our country?
Yeah, we lucked out in the case of Dr. Alawe. Like I said, the interview that was done by Customs and Border Patrol was outstanding, and they saw the videos on her phone, and they just said, no way, you're not getting back into this country, and they've held fast. Now, her initial legal team was kind of mixed, Muslim and non-Muslim. Now the non-Muslims have dropped off, and it's really a Muslim advocacy type group. They're trying to make some really esoteric case that the procedure itself, they don't contest anything. They can't contest anything. All the evidence is out there, her own words, what's on her cell phone, etc. But they're trying to say that there was some procedural flaws in how the case was handled administratively. And, I don't think that she'll ever get back in, during the current administration. But if she wants to, and she can wait it out, work in Lebanon for a while, I wouldn't, if God forbid there's a Democratic administration, then she probably would get back in.
Okay. So here's what we have here. And I wanted to ask you some targeted questions. What we have here is a gateway. I'll explain to you how it works. In North Carolina, let's just say, for the sake of argument, by the way, there's no country that's exempt from coming in here if they get a job, right? So let's say that a Pakistani, I'm not picking on Pakistan, let's say Jordan, someone comes in and let's say they fail their USMLE everywhere in the country and they just come in here, right? So number one, we'll get the worst of the worst.
So that's a realistic possibility in North Carolina, that they could fail the USMLE and still.
You don't need get this. Wait, hold on to your knickers, because I'm going to blow your mind. You ready? No USMLE and no residency, period. And you can have your license.
So just graduating from some medical school overseas.
But experience. Oh, no. Experience. They'll tell you if you don't have a residency, you need 10 years of experience, although for the last 5 years you didn't have to practice, full stop. Or by gum, if you do have a residency, it's 5 years experience over there doing whatever the F you're doing, right? And there's nothing about board certification.
But they have to have a record of graduating from some form of medical school, right?
But the medical schools.
I understand.
Who's verifying it?
Right. It's crazy. So, okay. So, and you would say, and I would say, well,
wait, is this legislation?
Yes, January 1st, it goes into effect.
It passed.
So here's the deal. Now you're going to say, and I bet you would, a normal person would say, well, Sloan, there's going to be quality control somewhere, because after all, insurance companies are not going to go for this. And you would be right. You would absolutely be right. And kudos to you for thinking ahead of this. However, Medicare and Medicaid, no smooth sailing. You need absolutely none of this. And it gets better.
So if they treat an indigent population,
or a poor population,
100% reimbursed.
There's no tripwires for them.
No, they're specifically
the rural poor, the urban poor, doesn't matter.
Specifically targeting rural poor.
And by the way, zero supervision required. None. Zilch. Zero. Nada.
So what's going on with, are there any state legislators that have their head screwed on properly that understand?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, because guess what? You know, you are talking to public enemy number one here in North Carolina, and number two is right in the middle, because we brought it up. We brought it up, and they're hiding. So they're saying to us privately, we didn't read the bill. And the two guys who put it up were Republican doctors. And why would they trick us? So we read the bill and blew our gasket, and now we're the problem, Andrew.
And I mean, so Republicans is one thing. Are there any like just conservative representatives?
Privately,
but
they are losing their minds at what they have done. Now, doesn't matter because it's still law.
And it's still, and you have a Democratic governor too, right?
And AG, both.
And AG. Oh, wow. So that makes it really tough. But yeah, so the problem is this could metastasize from North Carolina, because once they get into North Carolina, they can, you know,
in 4 years,
even if they take out the wrong half of someone's brain, they can just go somewhere else potentially.
And that was at Brown. That was in an Ivy. But here's the deal. So check this out. We have a way to get this to the rest of the nation, because in 4 years they have a permanent license. So you're going to get a bolus, okay, of third world doctors coming in through North Carolina. And if, on the economic side, they're going to take the job of American doctors all over the country. But we have a terrorist risk big time.
Right. Well, look, I'm sure you're aware of this, Sloan. The jihadist named Jihad, who attacked the synagogue in Manchester. Yes. His father is a general surgeon, from what I understand, and he was posting celebratory messages on October 7th, 2023. You know,
and so is this guy I showed you. So is this cardiologist.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon. I mean, now that there's a whole bunch of watchdog groups that have sprung up largely since 10/7, you know, like Stop Anti-Semitism, etc. You know, the social media accounts of cretins like this are made public. You know, but I guess Stop Anti-Semitism has had some success in getting people fired, you know, but obviously not enough. I mean, and then I guess in a situation like North Carolina, where there's a shortage of doctors in rural areas or maybe urban areas too, they're not going to fire someone so quickly.
But that's always, you know, there's always going to be an excuse. I don't know if you were on here when you heard. So check this out. Here's the folly of this bill. Everybody, we're talking about H Bill 67. In the same bill, you've got, get this, at the top of the bill, it's a compact where I guess we lost. Oh, she's coughing. It's a compact where doctors from all over the country can come in and have less barriers, not much less, but less. The second part of it is PAs can practice more independently. So in other words, inside of the bill, they did two things, and they struck that part of the bill out, because when you put foreign doctors can come in, you're going to depress the wages so much that you've just killed the rest of the bill. So all this is to say, things they could have done to expand access, they have not done. And then they're literally killing patients with this. But the threat, I just want for our listeners to understand, there is a cultural chasm that if you don't have a residency, I'm going to bring Margot back in. We lost you. And we've talked about this, and you know, Anesh talked about this when we had him on the show. If you don't have like a 2 or 3 year period of, I guess, culturation,
assimilation, at least.
Yeah. What are we looking at here in North Carolina?
No, good. Yeah, it's a real problem. Are they going to treat minorities they don't like, or people they don't like, or women, or you know, people that that aren't heterosexual? I mean, where do you draw the line? There's a tremendous discrimination in the Muslim world against blacks, particularly Arabs. I mean, the word for slave is abd. It's meaning it's a black person. I mean, it's just, there's all kinds of horrible bigotry that you're importing that may play out. Forget it. That's apart from the jihad terrorism angle. These are things that no one wants to grapple with, and I think, and what are the, are mosques going to spring up, in these rural communities that are going to make the problem worse with what they preach? Lots of mosques have been started by Muslim physicians,
Yep.
who accumulate a considerable amount of wealth. There's just a whole gamut of problems, and that's why I say that, my friend John Guandolo put out a tweet the other day, and he's absolutely right. If local communities aren't going to do anything about this, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. It's up to local communities. It's not up to politicians. It's not up to religious leaders. They've all failed, and they're not going to do anything. It's up to grassroots, individuals to bond together and just, say that they're not going to put up with this kind of stuff.
What an area for a petri dish experiment, though, because here you have Southerners who by nature are very welcoming, try not to talk about sex, politics, or religion. That's normal. And you infuse these folks that have nothing in common with an Scotch-Irish people, Protestants that have been in a rural community. I live in Appalachia. That like talk about totally just causing a challenge because they're not going to say anything. They don't want to be called racist. They've been called racist for the last 5 years.
I mean, one strategy that could be tried is, I always find that Christians are absolutely shocked when they learn the basics of how Islam views Christianity. I mean, it's so hateful. It's the most anti-Christian religion you could ever imagine. I mean, just start with the Muslim conception of Jesus. He's called Isa, the Muslim Jesus. And, all this baloney that you hear about, Islam cherishes the prophets, particularly Isa. Well, Isa's role in Islam is really heavily weighted towards end of times theology. And Isa will come back. First of all, there are basic things that are in the Quran itself. They deny the Trinity. They deny the resurrection. As a matter of fact, those are horrible blasphemies to Muslims. But Isa's role, the Muslim Jesus's role, is some 40 years before the end of times to come back, and now the mask drops. He's a full-throated Muslim, and in the traditions, in the Hadith, the traditions of Muhammad, it says he will break the cross, kill the pig, and end the payment of the jizya, this Quranic poll tax levied on non-Muslims. And what that means is he'll come back as a full-throated Muslim and destroy Christianity. Now, that's the most toxic view of Jesus that you could even imagine. And this is I actually heard this, a snippet of this at a local mosque in Providence. So I gave a talk about Islamic anti-Semitism after the October 7th attacks. And, it was very well attended for a weeknight, terrible weather, and in Barrington, Rhode Island at the public library. And one of the best questions I got was, because I gave examples of sermons across the United States, not just international sermons, very hateful sermons, very anti-Semitic sermons, etc.
We've seen them on X, by the way. There are plenty. MERI,
memory, yeah. And so someone asked me, well, have you ever listened to any sermons or seen any sermons from Rhode Island? And I said, I haven't. And this was in December of 2023, and I'm sorry, of this past year. And what happened was, on the first of the year, we had that jihadist attack, that vehicular jihadist attack in New Orleans, killed 15, injured 30, etc. And that was on a Wednesday, January 1st of this year. And I said, you know what? It dawned on me from the lecture I'd given a month earlier. I'd like to see are there any local mosques that have a Facebook page or someplace where they stream their sermons. And it turns out the Islamic Center of Rhode Island in Providence, 2 days after New Orleans, my jaw dropped at what they were preaching. In English, it was very dark when it came towards just preaching Islamic supremacism. And they quoted a verse from the Quran, from the 48th surah, the 29th verse, where Muhammad says that Muslims need to be kind to themselves and very harsh to non-Muslims. And I'm like, this is bad, a couple of days after New Orleans. But then there was an Arabic supplication at the end. And I have practically zero fluency in Arabic, but it was recorded, and I had it vetted by 3 translators, including a translator I'm working with on a book now. And it was shocking. They were calling for jihad against non-Muslims
in Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island, 2 days after, and so then I got interested in going back and reviewing all kinds of sermons, and obviously I found very, very anti-Semitic sermons. But getting back to this theme about Jesus, I found a sermon that was given 2 days before Christmas in 2023. And what I just described about the end of times and Jesus basically destroying Christianity was, Muslims were reminded of this in this sermon 2 days before Christmas. And I'm thinking to myself, it's so gratuitously bigoted and nasty to do that 2 days before Christmas. And nothing, I brought this to the attention of the Providence mayor, all kinds of local politicians, no reaction whatsoever. As a matter of fact, that mosque, this is actually a funny story. So that same mosque, about a month after October 7th, so I think it was November 17th of 2023, there was a shooting in front of the mosque, and it was drummed up as an Islamophobic hate crime. CARE was there. It went all across the country, actually. Local reporting, CNN. It was even in the Guardian overseas, and the Daily Mail. And I was following the police reports, and they weren't saying anything. They were investigating it. And about a week after it happened, the police said, basically we don't have any evidence yet that it's a hate crime. We're still investigating. I'm thinking, gee, most of those crimes are solved pretty quickly. And so I started looking into it, and asked, and I pointed out what the sermons were by this point. And ultimately, I worked with a lawyer, and I got the police report. And also, a note was left in my mailbox out, and I live in a rural area. And it was a handwritten note, and it made me a little nervous. But it was from a police officer who happened to be on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and he had the same last name of someone that we had deposed during the mask lawsuit. So I was thinking to myself, oh, it was his wife. He's probably got a grudge. He's going to call me Islamophobe and try and press charges of some sort against me. No, it was 180 degrees from that. He had some Arabic fluency. He was very concerned about this mosque. It was a lot of ex-cons go to this mosque. And he told me to get the police report. And so we did it, and the floodgates opened. It turns out the only suspect, and according to the officer, the guy who did it, the only suspect is another Muslim with a long criminal record for guns and drugs. The victim, who, by the way, I didn't tell you, this is a good part. He was shot in the tuchus. He was shot in the bullet passed right through, and he was in the ER for like 2 hours to get stitched up. So I now call it the shot in the tuchus heard around the world. And so you have 2 Muslims, probably both involved with drugs, because the guy that was the victim had a suspended sentence. He was served 5 years for not only selling drugs, but manufacturing them, and somehow got off. It was a 20-year sentence. Got off. So he gets shot in the tuchus by what turns out to be another Muslim, which is very tragic. A young guy with a terrible criminal record. I mean, he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison at this rate, and he hasn't even been charged for this crime because there is the Fifth Amendment. So he was in prison for a different crime. And so he's not going to incriminate himself for this crime because then he'll never get out of prison. And now the so-called the victim, and he was a victim. I mean, the other guy was probably trying to kill him. That he's clammed up, and yet the case was cited in a resolution on Islamophobia in Rhode Island.
Okay.
And when I brought the case to the attention of like, this is a fraudulent case. It's two Muslims. One shot the other one in the ass. They wouldn't review. They wouldn't suspend. They wouldn't renounce the resolution.
Okay, so to wrap up, you've just highlighted something that is very personal here. You're bringing in these this Islamic culture, this Islamic mindset, and the closer they are to practicing their religion, the more dangerous they are. They will drum up false reports of Islamophobia. Oh, yeah. They will use the legal system against you like you've never seen, and they'll do it against you and your children.
Yeah.
So,
again, so I'm just trying to get a way to motivate people, particularly in a rural area where there's this understandable deep in Christian communities, deep affection for Jesus. Is just explain.
We need an uprising.
What the Muslim view of Jesus is. It's the most hateful and destructive version of Jesus that you could imagine.
Well, we'll be bringing in speakers. You've given us actual food for thought. I mean, we are grassroots specialists, so we have no problem doing that. But I think, we're in league with several people that were Muslims and now are Christians, and
they must know. They must know.
They are the best ambassadors.
No, and they would be great to speak about this issue because it really cuts to the bone about why this is not such a nice thing to bring into the community.
Oh no, definitely not. So I want to thank you for being on. I mean, it's so shocking that it's really hard to digest and to actually put forward all the ways that people, especially for you, Margot, because there's no competition where you are. They could.
Correct. Nothing. I'm very rural. I'm 2 hours away from the nearest big city, 28,000 people in a community, very, very rural, Appalachia, way in the mountains. They die to have, no pun intended, to have good medical care. So they'll take a hospital.
That's the card that they're playing.
Right.
It's so cynical. It's so cynical.
And the politicians with the healthcare lobbyists, all GOP donors, etc. This is corrupt.
You'd be better. That community would be far better served by bringing in some good Christian PAs and nurses and nurse practitioners. They'd be 100% better served.
To be honest with you, my sister's a retired doctor. My sister-in-law's a retired doctor. Why not just work 2 days a week? Why not work? Exactly.
Just tell them it's you or them.
Right.
It's it's like Mr. I kind of hate infidels and I'll go screw a nurse during surgery, versus you. It's like
or rape. I mean that happens to be a cultural.
That's a good time to do it when a person's under anesthesia.
Well, I mean, if 9-year-olds are fair game. That's another problem.
It's a serious problem that you guys have uncovered, and God bless you for doing it.
Absolutely. It is serious. I thank you for being on. And guys, I just want to tell you, this is the beginning of the beginning. It's not the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the beginning on this campaign. I promised you, and I will do this. This law will be rescinded. We will take people out of office. I've done it before. I got a great record of doing it. I'm going to do it again. This will not stand here in North Carolina. So thank you, Andrew, for being a part of helping us fight back.
And Andrew, please come back. It was super good to meet you. I really do appreciate you.
Oh, sure. Anytime, guys. It's great. And I'm really appreciate what you're doing. This is an awful law.
Yes. Thank you very much. All right. Good night, guys. We'll see you Thursday. Bye-bye.
That's a wrap on today's NC Political Tea. We hope you're leaving sharper, spicier, and ready to take on the political craziness in the Tar Heel State. If you loved what you heard, or even if it made you mad, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this show with your friends, family, and that one coworker who just needs the truth. Follow us on social media to stay in the loop and get your daily dose of conservative fire. And remember, here in North Carolina, the grassroots grows stronger when we stand together. Until next time, keep the faith, keep up the fight, and don't let the left water down your tea. This is NC Political Tea, where we spill it like it is.